All right, here we go. Overdrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Yo Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. And this is where we supply internal solutions and internal progress.
Hang on
That's
a sec.
what we bring to the table every day.
Wow, we're going to have a bounce back. We're all going to be great today, but we are going to have our own internal solutions. But does internal solutions... I had a little chat with someone who was covering the presser today. Does that count as, because I think we had a wager, internal solutions is not internal improvement, okay?
It feels like it's close, man. It's really close.
I get it. There's similar meaning there, and it was almost like, I don't want to say internal. No, it's not.
That's all it is. $500.
It's almost like he thought in his head, he was like, I can't say internal improvements again, so I got to just that. It was a jerk reaction, a knee-jerk reaction at the last second. He was like, internal solutions.
And solutions, man. I'm telling you, I guarantee you, Ross and Mark, they sat down with the PR team. They said, you cannot say internal improvements. You can't do it.
Dude, I got to back you up right there. Hearing some of their pressers, and like I said yesterday, nice enough guys, they always come on the show, but I don't think they prep for stuff like that because it's been nonsense from the word go. You would think if they had a PR team, they'd be like, look, man, you got to be straight up, straight shooter, give them the goods and stop beating around the bush. Instead, it's like, well, if we look deep into the internal, it's not.
Well,
it's been nonsense from the word go.
And I thought that's effectively what happened today. You mentioned that they generally come on the show. That is true. We obviously invited both guys on today. They declined to come on. So we'll see if they'll come on in the future. That is a new era in Toronto sports. Teams crap out at the end of the year and they say, we're not coming on. You know, the Leafs started it. The Raptors are there. The Blue Jays are there. It's disappointing. We'd love to have them come on and just try to get deeper into the weeds on what's going on here. But I do think the internal progress is effectively the same thing. Yeah. Improvements in progress, they're synonymous, solutions, right, Noodles? Yeah, it's the same thing, man. We knew it was going to be said, and it was said.
All they did was take a thesaurus and go, we need a different word for improvements. So solutions was brought to the table. It's $1,000 it costs you because it's $500 each. We both bet you because we knew it was going to be thrown out. And they have a PR team. I think the PR team is very good. Our buddy Griff was on it, was he not?
Yes, he was a part of the staff for quite some time.
Okay, well, Griff, send me a DM and let me know if you prep people for pressers like this, because I don't think anybody's been prepped, because it's nonsense. Wouldn't you think after a garbage season like that, it would be like, you got to come out with something riveting to make something, like make the fan base like see some attachment towards you and believe in you. Instead, it's just like, yeah, I'm going to hold myself accountable and I got to be better. And
it was all the same cliches. I mean, that's ultimately what it was.
And some guy followed up a tweet right underneath it. He goes, we're gonna have the same presser next year. And if they don't get Juan Soto or someone like that, they will be.
They're not getting Juan Soto. I mean,
okay,
that's
then they'll be doing the same presser next year, man.
Possibly. Juan Soto's not coming up here. He's not coming up here. And listen, when in doubt, I would say take a page out of Masai Ujiri's book. I don't think the Leafs do this well. I don't think the Blue Jays do this well. I think they're polished, right? You look at Shapiro, Shanahan, Masai. Those are the three guys at the top. Yeah. Shapiro and Shanahan are very polished. They come off as politicians. And in good times, that goes a long way. They can explain certain things. They're always going to – I think they have this belief that they can't look flustered. And it comes off as arrogance sometimes. It comes off as certainly tone deaf. And it certainly doesn't connect with the fan base. And I felt that way today with Shapiro, that what Masai Ujiri has always done and always done very well is he has attacked winning and a championship and shown emotion when he talks about it. And he goes, we're going to win, like a championship here. Mark Shapiro started talking about meaningful games in September today. Talk about the goalposts moving. I thought you were here to win a World Series. Now we're trying to get back into meaningful games in September. Like, what are we, the Pirates? That's a team that's like we've been talking about the Habs a lot recently. That's what the Habs want. Meaningful games in March. Meaningful games in April with an understanding they're not that good. They're probably not going to the playoffs. They're not going to win a Stanley Cup. When you start using a goalpost as meaningful games in September, you are losing everybody.
Let me just
Not
tell you
one
this,
fan
though.
wants to
Let
hear
me just
that.
come back at you this. If he started talking about World Series, and I've mentioned this before, if this load of nonsense that went out there on the field this year, if you're going to go from not even close to competing for a World Series next year, I would say, you know what, you're full of it, man. Like, how that is not possible with this core guys to say World Series is in play next year. I don't care how you spin it. I don't even know if you bring one. We talked about if Ohtani was on this roster, what on earth would they be? They're not in the playoffs right now.
No, they might be 80 wins. Maybe they're 81, 82 wins. And, Mark spoke and Ross about injuries, and I think he was speaking directly about Bo Bichette, which is reasonable. Romano and Swanson and, Garcia at times early in the year, the bullpen was a disaster, and a lot of that was the fact that they were relying on Romano and Swanson, and neither of those guys brought anything this year.
Okay, so you wanted them to talk about the World Series.
Well, no, what I want them to show is that it's not – it just feels like everything is a calculation down there. I guess that's my point, and that's baseball maybe in a nutshell, is everything's just about, well, if you look back in the last 4 years, we made the playoffs 3 times, and we had meaningful baseball, and if we have a process and we have internal solutions, and we're going to look at our calculator, and we're going to get everyone together, and they're going to put some numbers together. That's what it sounds like. And I understand that is in large part what management is, but I think the PR matters, and you have a fan base here that is furious with the way this went this year and weren't that happy with the way it went the year before, even though you were playing meaningful games in September and you made the playoffs. So, I don't think they landed the message today that it felt like they are so desperate to do something. It was almost as if it came off like, are you guys serious? Do you realize that we had meaningful baseball the last few years? That's all I took out of it, was meaningful baseball in September at some point in the last 4 or 5 years.
Do you remember, was it the manager in Seattle that started quoting
the GM
started
numbers
quoting analytics and saying this is, to me, they took a big step backwards. Obviously in the standings, but projections, again, you can't, Romano, Bo, injuries, all of that. It happens.
It happens to every team.
I get it. But it just, I don't know. To me, you go out there and you say, I've got to be better. We're going to take it on the chin. This is us. This isn't on the players. Well, the players could have played better. Absolutely.
For sure they could have.
But I mean, was this team good enough to start the season? Everything had to fall into place for them to even be what we'll call it an 88-win team, a 90-win team. Like Juan Soto, are we going to start watching planes that are flying into Toronto now?
Hayes says it's not
happening. I'm not doing that.
And Hayes, let me tell you one thing about what I've realized about this. It's you can get worked up after a season, whether it be Maple Leafs, Raptors, Blue Jays, and you talk about conduct from management. They have one philosophy, and it you can't really blame them for it because there's not much else to do. If you want to sit and say, you know what, I was a donkey on that trade, I screwed that, they could do that, but they're never going to do that. They got to get through that today, and then they probably get on a bird out of town, and then come January, it's go Jays go. Do you know what I mean? It's like everybody's back on board. I want to support the team. Although fans are furious right now, but come January, spring training, everyone's they're not going to say, I can't stand Ross Atkins and Shapiro. They're going to be go Jays go. And they're going to hope it works out again. That's just how they get through it.
But, we do that. I mean, how many times have we done that with the Leafs? The Leafs make the playoffs, they lose, and then people are pissed. They got to break up the core. You got to do that. You got to do this and that. And then it's hey,
they're lined up on October 5th.
And so what you're saying is that they take for granted the Toronto sports fan, and maybe they do, and maybe they should.
I don't know what they do, Brian. I'm just telling you what happens.
I understand that.
They get through that day. They take the bullets. They probably go home and read the comments, and then it's well, we got through that. That's the end of it for them. It's not like the complaints are us bitching and complaining. Someone from above them says, man, everybody hates them. Now I have to fire them. Nothing like that ever happens.
Well, and there's a couple things I think to get in on that. You're right. I mean, ultimately, nothing said today is really going to make a difference It is about actions more than words. Clearly.
It's almost a waste of time.
It is about, but I do think there's a performance that comes with it. Mark Shapiro has been in baseball a long time. He understands. This is the entertainment business. Like to just sit up there and really, low pulse and just talk people through it and then get out of there. I don't think they landed the urgency message. But I think what sticks out is there is now, with the news that came out a couple of weeks ago with the Bell and Rogers stuff, there is one guy that has the keys to the sports franchises in this city.
Yeah.
Like the top of the Rogers family and empire. And this was Edward Rogers, and I guess Rogers in general, their first opportunity to really send a message. Because I think Leaf fans were watching, Raptor fans watching, TFC fans, Argo fans, what are you going to do here? And the message is, we're going to run it back. We're okay with that, right? Mark's been here a decade. Ross has been here for 9 years. John Schneider's been here for a couple of years. 74 wins, all good. We had meaningful September baseball at some point. So we're going to run that back. And again, I think there's something to that this was the first opportunity after the sale to be like, you know what, we're going to send a big message to the whole town. And they sent a big message that it's internal
status quo.
Solutions in progress.
Yeah,
and that's what the
quo.
Leafs are doing. The Leafs are internal solutions in progress, right? It's the same thing. Like at least the Raptors have a different message, right? Masai's like, we're rebuilding. Like we're not going to pretend like there's some solution or progress here. We're rebuilding. And basically what Masai said the other day was, we need lottery balls to fall our way.
Yeah,
that's
the easiest two. That's the easiest 2 words in management and pro sports to say to get you out of jail free for I don't know how long it is, 3 years.
Right, you got to give us some time, man.
Dude, you just blurt that out. If you blurt out, we're rebuilding, we need lottery balls. That keeps flies off because people are like, you can just keep saying, remember what I told you at the beginning of the year?
Right, exactly. Exactly, and that's again the Jays today at the start of the year. They were saying we thought we were competing. We thought we'd be a great team. Like Mark kept saying, another thing that I couldn't understand, and I'd love to be able to ask him. I'm fired up today.
This guy's beside himself.
So horny. You're horny as hell.
He kept he kept using the word objective. He kept saying we objectively believed we had a good. How can you be objective? It's your team, right? Like I can't be objective about this show. I don't objectively say I think we got a great show. I'm biased. I know I'm biased. I put time into this. You put time and effort into it. I can't be objective on this show. How are they objectively projecting what's going to happen? How does that work? Can you explain that to me? Like how you can't be objectively concluding that you have a good team.
Dude, I don't exactly. I don't toss around objectively. I know, but
it was a word that he threw around a few times today.
But you brought
objectively, we thought it's not possible. It's your team.
You brought up the King Daddy 3-pack yesterday, where it was like terrible team. What was it? Bottom 10 farm system, top 10 payroll, and no playoffs. Did anyone bring that? I didn't hear the presser. But did anyone bring that to anyone's attention?
Not really. I mean, it wasn't
like that would be a stat. What I would say. How do you answer for this? Like if it's like you're a terrible team, you would say we can rely on the farm system. We got some real good ones coming. Mm-hmm. But they can't say that. That would be my only question. How do you explain no playoffs, not even close, top 10 payroll? Bottom 10 farm system. Please explain that to me. That would be my only question.
I'd love to ask that question, and I think that would be a great response. I mean, it would be great to see what kind of response you'd get. But, all right, we got Phillips coming up in 15. We'll play a couple of the clips, and we will maybe have Doogie, who is objective in this, tell us the answer. Is internal, what was it again? I keep reading
Solutions.
it here. Solutions in progress.
Yeah.
Does that count as a Hayes and Noodles win or as an O-Dog win? Okay, we'll play that. We'll get your answer on it.
Doogie, don't do that to me. I bought you a couple fax specials in
Actually,
Montreal.
He brought me a fax today, man. I walked in and there was a fax waiting for me, and that's why I'm fired up.
Did he get you the real one? Like the
It's
the
close.
Bianca special, did he get the espresso in there?
I can't confirm or deny. I'm going to Fergie this one. I cannot confirm or deny, but it's a fact special.
I can either confirm or deny.
I am floating in here. I'm feeling great. All right, so the Leafs are back in action tomorrow, but that game at the Bell Center last night, Habs-Sens have a lot of people buzzing. And it was similar down in New York at the Garden with the Rangers and the Devils. the NHL, I don't recall the last time we had a preseason with craziness like this. This feels like an old school throwback type of scenario, and I think it's great for the league.
Well, it's funny you say that, Brian. I had an executive tell me today, he's like, well, what do you want? He goes, people piss and moan about exhibition hockey going, hey, you're not playing enough veterans. These guys don't care. They're not getting in the way. And he goes, all hell starts to break loose, and people are pissing and moaning about that, saying, well, you can't allow guys to get injured. He goes, you can't bubble wrap them. You got to let them play. I do think I watched that game. I think I didn't see. Did they rescind the Xhekaj game misconduct?
Well, he didn't get suspended. He's not being reviewed. He's not getting one of those silly fines with the on-the-book stuff.
And I was hot about that this morning, guys, because I saw that, and I'm like, I'd give that guy 5 games for that. But after rewatching it, and that's what you have to do, take a look at it. And I'm sure people don't have Dregs' number and Mike Johnson's number. But I called around, and Mike Johnson said if you watch it again, he didn't directly hit him in the head. He hit him in the hands. The stick came up and hit him in the head. But I'll tell you what, man, I might have thought about giving him 1 or 2 just for being a dum-dum and saying that was real close. And we gave you a little spank there last week, and you still went out and did that. And we know that's how you do your business. But if he caught him with an elbow in the head, that's 15 games there. Well, because that's an old school elbow.
It's real close, man.
Dude, it's
that's
real
my
close,
point.
man.
The books are it's a complete waste of time talking about these books because it's their books. They write what's in the books. No one gets to see the books.
Thing is, though, you can't can you find or be mad for intent? Like he went to hit him, and yes, it looked bad optically, but at the end of the day, like this guy is out there playing for keeps. That's really what it is.
Let me ask you a question though. Because one thing I thought of last night was Habs fans were freaking out, and we had this conversation, and Noodles, you fell in this group, that Pare should have stepped up, dropped his gloves, and taken his medicine.
Yeah.
Why didn't Xhekaj do that last night? Why did he keep his gloves on, and then when he got on the ground, he turtled? Like he wasn't fighting Brady. Why didn't he step up and fight Brady Tkachuk last night? Why does it only apply to Pare, and Xhekaj didn't take his medicine, so to speak?
But I think that was the same shift. Brady went after him. I think if it's a later shift, I think they're squaring off. That's my point.
Okay, and that's reasonable. I think you're right.
I would say, and I'm concerned. I don't like Brady come up injured. I think he might have hit his head on the ice or something, like something weird there at that transaction. Because Brady went right after him, so Xhekaj had to know. They started wrestling. I think they fell. But I would guarantee you that if Xhekaj wasn't out of the game, they would have fought next shift, or he at least would have welcomed anybody.
Right.
So that's the difference.
You're right about
Brian,
that.
To that
guys,
point.
to put 2 and 2 together here, 2 times he hasn't taken his gloves off. So what would that tell you?
That what he
Maybe
does?
Something's wrong with his hand.
I
don't know. Not broken hand, but he's got something going on with his. I've never seen that guy not take his gloves off. I'm just doing simple hockey math
that's
here.
Valid.
If a guy doesn't take his gloves off 2 times in a row, a guy that always does, there's probably something wrong with a knuckle, a finger, something. And he's just not taking his gloves off for that reason alone.
Well, it is. I am concerned, and this comes back to the bigger picture, and I think we have Prongs on later. I want to ask him this, too, because I think – are you happy with the games? Are you happy with the list of guys that are leaving? And the league's going to start.
There's a lot of injury problems, man. I mean, Celebrini got banged up. You've got obviously now Stutzle who left, Tkachuk who left. You got Doughty who's out, Shabbat left. I mean, Laine's out 2 to 3 months. Reinbacher out for a long time.
I think Panarin left the other day.
I don't know how you get around it unless the NHL catches up to the NFL. And you basically say your 6 best forwards, your 4 best D, and your starting goal, you're just not playing. Like you're not playing in the preseason. I don't think they'll ever get to that point.
Starting quarterbacks never play in the NFL.
Never play.
So
they never play.
Just do that. It's like your top 6 guys play 3 preseason games, and it's all about. It's kind of crappy, but your best players just aren't playing. End of story.
But it sucks because you're right. Like at some point. Like these players want to. McDavid's on record saying the other day, he's like, I want to play with my teammates and get our power play going, get that feeling, get those habits going, because you're playing for keeps next week, and there's not going to be, hey, we got to ease our way in. We really haven't had much time together. Well, you should have time together. You should be. It's the chicken or the egg. Unfortunately, it's kind of come up right now. but there's a rash of injuries and it's topical. But if there was no injuries, or maybe one or two, we'd be like, hey, I'd like to see McDavid play. I'd like to see Matthews play. I'd like to see the top players play and get into a groove. But it's a fine line, man, and that's why it's top. I don't have the answer. I would like to see less games. There's a good tweet there. I think Joe from the Bridge threw it out. But I'd like to see less games, but all your big boys playing, and maybe guys who are on the cusp of playing.
Yeah, but the thing is and I agree with you. I think you have to let guys play if they feel they want to play. And there are quarterbacks in the NFL that do play and say, give me a couple of snaps, give me a couple, but usually in the NFL, and the NHL doesn't have this luxury, it's first team on first team, and then they all leave. Second team on second team, they leave. Third team on third team. You're not going to get that in the NHL unless both teams agree, okay, we're playing our full lineup. Let's play a game. Let's all kind of ease into it, not really take it that seriously and get out of here. But, I mean, the injuries are going to happen. They're substantial. It sucks. Yeah. It sounds as if, Pierre LeBrun's reporting maybe they'd take away a couple of games in the preseason, but add them to the regular season.
Oh, stop
it. They're looking at 84 games. Which
really? 84 games? That's insane. I'll tell you one thing about what's going on in the preseason. For the last 3 or 4, I think it's every year they play the Habs, and while the Habs haven't been very good, it's almost a sleeper like, wow, it's Leafs Habs to start the season, and there hasn't been a lot of juice. There's some juice for next Wednesday,
agree, man. I agree. Right. I think this has actually been – I think the league loves it. They can't show that publicly. But I think they love this because these aren't fringe players either. Xhekaj, I think, will play. He's not a guaranteed NHL player, but I think he'll play. But Ridley Gregg's a player. Yeah. He's going to play.
Damn good one.
Yeah, he's a good player, right? Yeah. And you look at Rempe last night at the Gardens flying around. Like, that kid's probably going to play.
Did you see the one tweet out there? I was laughing because it, again, take it for what it's worth. It's like Rempe worked with George Laraque. He didn't work on his puck skills or something. He was missing hits and running around in that one shift.
He didn't hit anybody. He
missed like 3 hits and lost his stick, and they were like, is this the George Laraque effect? I was dying.
That Ridley Gregg play, just watching that, he was if that was a little bit later and the result was a little bit worse, he would have had some phone calls today too.
And he said it.
He's one of my favorite players, and I love watching him play. But he's getting greasy. I love it. That's a gray area. If that was a little bit later and that guy didn't come back, he might have some problems.
And there's a guy, again, answering the bell. Doc challenged him. He was at the end of his shift. He's not a big guy. Doc's a massive guy, and it was a good tilt. And again, I think if you're a fan, now some fans won't love the nastiness. It's you can separate the opinion on whether or not you think this should be fine-worthy, should it be suspension-worthy. But it is buzzing, especially in this division. I mean, you look at guys like Gregg, like Xhekaj. Obviously, in Toronto, you're going to have Reeves and others. Down in Boston, there's going to be guys that are going to have some piss and vinegar. Florida's the king of it. Florida's waiting to go.
Yeah, they started this.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of tough characters and juice and some hatred building up. No, the final score is completely irrelevant. I have no idea who won last night. I couldn't care less who won the game. Okay, good for Ottawa.
Yeah, but you're right. If you didn't, you just this is just you're talking about all the nonsense. You didn't even talk about the score.
Who cares? Yeah. It's more about these two teams hate each other. There's a rivalry. There's players that you circle and say, okay, what's that guy all about, and what is he going to do the next time we see him play? And you're right, man. On Wednesday night, the Leafs are in Montreal. I'm curious to see what's going to happen.
For keeps, man.
It sure is. It sure is.
I do like it. What concerns me is I've always been kind of on the outside where it's like extra hockey, world championships, Olympics, when guys are not playing in the league. Here's this Rempe shift. This was unbelievable. He's just running guys. I got him, I guess. No, I did get him.
Loses his stick, punches a guy.
Yeah, just running around though. Good for him. You know what? You certainly have to be aware of him out there. But to finish my thought is you'd never want to see injuries when it's not for real.
Sure.
The games aren't for real. And that's the only thing that I'm, kind of concerned about. And I'm sure in Ottawa they're concerned. And
I don't know what they do about it, though. If you're going to play, anything can happen. And again, last night, that's Gregg, who's a player. Xhekaj's a player. You know, I mean, there's not much you can do to get around that. All right, Doogie will come back and determine if internal solutions in progress count as internal improvements or internal growth. Does that count? We'll play that clip, a couple more clips, and Steve Phillips will join us on what he heard and saw from Shapiro and Atkins earlier today. The baseball playoffs are continuing, and the Tigers, they won game 1 yesterday. Last time I checked, they were up 1-0 early in Houston. That'd be incredible. If they go down there and sweep them in 2 games, what a story that'll be. And I guess they'd go to Yankee Stadium. That would be wild if it was Tigers,
all 3
Yankees.
games in Houston?
Yeah, all 3 are in wherever the game is being hosted.
I've got a weird question here. Why are they during the day, during the week?
Because there's 4 games. And because you're trying to get the wild card games out. Like there's 4 games yesterday, 4 again today. They get these over with quick. Because the other teams, the top 2 seeds in the American League and National League, they want to get going. They want to start playing. You know, so yeah, this is going to be interesting. If the Tigers hold on and sweep them here, that would be a wild story. So more on that from Steve Phillips. He's from Detroit. I'm sure he's got takes on it. And what did he hear from the guys down at One Blue Jays Way earlier this morning? Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. All right, Steve Phillips will join us here in a moment. We'll play a clip from Mark Shapiro's opening statement. We'll play a clip on Shapiro evaluating Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and maybe how he would label him, and we'll get Steve to answer on that. But first, let's play this clip from Ross Atkins. We had bets going yesterday. Would they use the term internal improvement or internal growth? This is what Ross Atkins had to say earlier today.
Well, if you look at the versatility that we have, we're going to need, as I've said, this is the same for every team. You know, I think you have to have internal solutions and progress, and you have to have external adds for a market like ours and a team like ours for us to take another step.
All right,
what the hell does that even mean? A team like ours and a market like ours. Does that mean our team's junk and no one wants to come here? Like, I don't know what a market like ours and a team like ours means.
I'm not.
That would have been.
Sure.
I'm not like some whiz question guy, but that would have been my follow-up. What does market like ours and team like ours mean? What are you trying to say?
I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there was a significant pause after the word internal. Did you notice that?
Thought about that.
It glitched, and Ross is like, I can't say improvement. I can't say growth. Solutions in progress. Doogie, your ruling. How do you feel about that?
That is the exact same.
Perfect.
As internal improvements.
Well done, Doogie.
No doubt.
Doogie, I bought you 2 Ryan Gingers in Montreal.
I'm sorry.
You bastard.
Now, Doogie does have a horn growing right now, so that could be affecting the way he's seeing things and hearing things.
A little bit.
How's that phone going, man? Don't bring it into the studio, Doogie. Yeah. I do not want to be associated with that.
I've talked about it, and they do not want to touch it or even be around me at some times.
Dude, are you kidding me? With the amount of cologne that guy wears, that phone is in pristine shape, and there's no germs on it. That's got Drakkar Noir phone all over it.
It might.
He's got to be walking around with an oven mitt on. I would have just left it there. Just take it and throw it in there.
That should still be at Trudeau Airport in Montreal.
Yes.
That should still be there.
It's stuck in the urinal cake.
Yes.
It should just be stuck
forever,
there,
man.
out.
You can go back there in a decade, it's still there. All right, here's what Mark Shapiro had to say when he first arrived on the evaluation of the team, Ross Atkins, and how he takes into account what happened this year and making decisions on the future.
Obviously had way more time than I want or I'd hoped for to reflect upon the season over the past few weeks. A lot of things we'd rather be doing today, I'm sure all of you as well, watching other teams play in the playoffs, competing, watching those games yesterday, not an easy thing to do, but really over the past few weeks, combined with, the losses, was the stark reality that the past 4 seasons we played meaningful games all the way through September, and that playing September baseball games without playoff implications is painful. It's tough. It's not where we want to be, not what we want for our fans, and certainly not enjoyable for us either. This past season was a bitter disappointment.
All right. I mean, that's accurate. I think everyone would see it the same way. But again, the previous 4 years, meaningful games in September. Are the goalposts moving here? Instead of talking about a World Series, it's meaningful games in September? Is
With
that
no
the
wins in the
objective?
past.
With no wins. No, literally no wins in the playoffs. Here's Steve Phillips, our TSN baseball insider. Do you hear that clip? And I'm sure you heard the presser. Is Shapiro and company down there, are they moving the goalpost here, Steve? Or it's not about the World Series anymore. It's just about meaningful games in September.
Well, it's interesting, right? I think that, and it's always, it was always a question that I had, is what is a successful season to an owner? And is it to make money? And to do that, you tend to place, meaningful games into September where you continue to draw fans out and everything else. Is it to win a championship? Is it to create memories for the fans? I mean, the reality is it's all of those things. And Mark is talking about it from, the president's perspective. And he was clearly delineating the separation between himself and Ross when it comes to making all the baseball decisions and everything else throughout the press conference. So, look, I think that when a general manager does that, what you're doing is you're trying to lower expectations and then hoping to over-deliver. So he understands that, he wants to win a World Series. They're going to put a team together to try to win a World Series. They want to put together a team that can win a division, make it to the playoffs, and make a run in the postseason. Now, here's the thing. I'm watching the Detroit Tigers right now win Game 1 against the Astros, and then they're winning today 1-0, and I keep looking at them thinking, I don't see how they're built to be a World Series championship team, but they got a shot. Right, but here, and I'll tell you what, I think that in many regards, the Blue Jays have more talent on their roster than the Detroit Tigers do. Tigers, the most home runs anybody hit was 24. The most RBIs had was 75. And so, it's there's more to it than just the names on the roster and what that looks like. It's about, and he talked some part of that, but I think that's stuff that, it goes in one ear and out the other when it talks about the process. And we're like, oh man, we don't need more, business 101 talk. We want to figure out, are we going to hit better? Are we going to catch better? Are we going to pitch better? And can it lead to a win? And enough wins to get to the World Series. So, I could have written the script for his answers, could have written the script for the questions. I understand why he answers them the way that he does, and I understand why everybody just wants to hear, we're committed to putting together a World Series championship team next year. But, that's somewhat over-promising. And and I think in many regards, if you get to the playoffs, you get a chance to win once you're there.
Steve, how much prep goes into today? Like, are they meeting with PR people to say, you got to say this, you got to say that, or is it just, we're going to throw out the usual cliches? Like, how much goes into what goes on before they actually get on that stage?
Yeah, I think every organization is different. And I would suspect, though, that in most regards, there is some level of preparation with somebody in the media relations department or an outside firm of, these are the questions you're going to get asked. Be prepared for the answers. And, and how is it that you want to position yourself? How is it that you want to put it out there? When I was with the Mets, we ended up, ownership brought in, one of Fred Wilpon's good friends from growing up, and he had like his own sort of, he was like a business doctor who would come in and look at companies, try to figure it out, but he also did a lot of PR. So we'd have meeting after meeting about, here's the question, here's how we should answer these. And what generally, when that happens, I think you miss the boat because you're saying what you think people want to hear, and it's not. And so it does not always sound authentic. Now, I know Mark Shapiro well. I know how he was going to answer these questions. And he answered them exactly the way I thought he would. He's disappointed this year. The whole organization is. And I think the question is now, they've acknowledged that. They've acknowledged they didn't do a good enough job. There was accountability in that. And now it's a matter of now what? Like, what do you do? Now, you have to go out and show what changes you're willing to make that can sell a product to fan base and the media that it's going to be better and different.
Here's Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB insider. So Shapiro was asked if he would consider Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a generational talent. Here's how he answered that question.
I don't know, generational player, like what's your definition of that? He's one of the better offensive players in the game today. I'm not sure, and certainly has the opportunity to be a generational player, because of how young he is. So, but that's to make that decree at 26 years old is not, he has the opportunity to be a generational player. It's tough. When you go to the Hall of Fame, what separates the players in those plaques is that they played the bulk. They stayed healthy and they just contributed for 15 years, 18 years.
What do you make of that answer?
Yeah, I think that it's sort of a gotcha question. And, he's thinking to himself, okay, if I answer it a certain way, then it impacts my negotiations. So I can't totally commit to it that he's a generational player, but I want to acknowledge that I think he's got the talent and he's an extraordinary hitter, and that, he is young and he's going to have to be more consistent before I would name him a generational player. And that's going to be the theme in my negotiation, is that he's had some good years. We'd love to see the consistency. And so, yeah, it was a gotcha question because, how do you answer it in a way that best situates you for negotiations in the future? And so I think I might have answered it similarly, understanding that it felt like this was a potential setup for an agent to utilize, yes, I'm a generational player. Yes, he's a generational player, and those guys get paid this much money.
Do you think as a winner, though, Steve, like Vladdy, would you be comfortable hitching your wagon to him? Like, I've often brought up that kid in Kansas City, Bobby Witt Jr. Like, he looks like a gamer and a guy that wants to win, a guy that wants to turn the corner. Like, are you comfortable saying that about Vladdy? Like, there's been playoffs in the past, although it's just squeaking in, no wins. Like, do you want to hitch your wagon to him?
Yeah, I would. I think he's in the best shape of his career. I've heard some people say, well, geez, if you give him the money, will he still? I do. I think he's committed to being great right now. So I would. And again, at some point, the player, he can perform in your market. They know him better than anybody else does. And if they're not willing to do it, if I'm another general manager out there and they're not willing to do it, when they don't have any one guy locked up for the long term like that, then it would scare me a little bit. I'd be like, what do they know that I don't know about this? And so, yeah, I would think that he's got to be the centerpiece around which you're going to build for the future. I do. I would be comfortable with the 10-year contract for him at 25 going on 26 years old.
Steve, so if you're looking at this roster moving forward and say you're the manager, is there anything drastic you could do? Like, is there one move that that could really, I don't know, reshape this group to put you in a conversation to be ultra competitive next year?
I don't think there's one move. No, I think they are multiple moves away within their offense to get back to being that way. They have gone from an offensive team to a run prevention team, and they've gone so far in that other direction and never replaced the offense that they've got so much work to do with it right now. And so I think that there's not one single move to be made as a general manager or as a manager of the team to get them in the right direction. I mean, you're starting off with a nice core of starting pitching with your big three. You throw in Bowden Francis in there. It's a nice start with 4 deep. Got to love it. That's very good. You've got Vladdy. You're going to have to shut back. You're trading him from a point of weakness doesn't make any sense right now. He underperformed, was hurt, so you're not going to get anything for him. So you've got to plan on him being part of your team for next year. So you've got to build. What are you going to look like at third base? What are you going to look like at second base? What are your outfielders going to look like? Marshall's having surgery. I don't bring him back. I trade him or non-tender him. And I think, great defender. In fact, he's the best defender in the outfield in baseball. But, when you look at it, you think to yourself, that's not enough. You can't have just the best defender. If you do, and you have somebody who's not that strong offensively, then you better pick up that offense everywhere else, and they don't have that. And so, when I had the Mets, I had Ray Ordonez as shortstop. He didn't have any power. He hit one home run a year, literally, and it got him in trouble every time. I was hoping it was at the end of the year, not the beginning of the year, because once he hit one, he thought, maybe I can hit home runs. But he could pick it. But I was able to carry him because I had a catcher in Mike Piazza where we started every game with a huge advantage behind the plate compared to any other team because of his offensive production. We had guys that had power in non-power. Gardo Alfonso had legitimate power, 30-home power at second base. And so I had the ability to go with a defensive player, but you've got to make up for that offense, and they can't afford that right now. They don't have that luxury to be able to do that. So run prevention is great, but you need run production too.
All right, Steve, we'll leave it there. We'll see what else comes out of the Blue Jays as we move forward. And, again, the playoffs are rocking. The Tigers, they're looking pretty good, although the Astros have tied it up, and they got bases loaded bottom of 7. So that could be going to Game 3. Kansas City up quick. They're up 1-0 in that series. Enjoy the playoffs. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
All right, you got it. Houston just took the lead 2-1 right now.
There you go. I love it. Live update. Steve Phillips joining us here on Overdrive, our TSN MLB Insider. Yeah, Houston's a tough team to kill, man. Like, you talk about having that winning pedigree. They just will get up off the mat. And the Tigers, now they've been punched for the first time in a while. How are they going to respond in this game? How do they respond in Game 3? But the KC-Baltimore game's already underway, top of 1, and Kansas City's already on the board. Wouldn't be surprised if Bobby Witt Jr. factored in on that.
There you go.
Dude, it's just such a different vibe. Like, I always have to ask Steve that. I'm like, you really think Vladdy's that guy? The guy that falls asleep at second base to end a game? Like, is that the same guy? I don't think it is. I really don't.
Well, I don't have an issue with Shapiro's answer for a couple of different reasons on Vladdy. Right. One, it's always a negotiation right now. But secondly, Vladdy, like, generational, that's A-Rod when he showed up. That's Ken Griffey. That is not Vladdy. Like, he had a phenomenal year this year.
Okay, then have the stones to just say he's not.
Well, but you also, there's no point in insulting your player.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. Like, that's not going to serve you by saying that's a stupid question or whatever. I think he danced through that as well as you can, but he's not generational. You know, like, he plays first base. He's a very good hitter. He had a phenomenal season this year, but he's never won an MVP. You know, and he's still not going to win one this year, I don't believe. In fact, I know he won't. So, you know, Aaron Judge looks more generational. Ohtani, like, you got to get to that
Ken
level.
Griffey
man.
Jr.
Yes, A-Rod when he was rolling it. Barry Bonds, like, you know, that's generational. Randy Johnson, Pedro, like, Vladdy's got to do more to get there. He doesn't deserve that label because he doesn't have it. So, and as Mark said, give him a few years. Maybe in a few years we look back and say that this was the launching pad and this guy's consistently great every single year. And he's a really good player, and I'd like to see him stick around. Because I think he's incredibly important to whatever they're going to represent in the future. Trying to win, trying to retool, whatever it is, I think Vladdy can represent all that. But that's going to be intriguing to see how they play that out this offseason. All right, Chris Pronger will join us 20 minutes, get his take on some of the craziness in the preseason. Sure, he was involved in some of that back in his day. And, you know, the idea of the importance of playing in preseason games, and we'll get him to give us an answer on how he feels about the Leafs going into a new year. So Chris is coming up. Role play level of concern in about 45 minutes. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, role play level of concern coming up. Chris Pronger will join us as well. I think we need to address this thing once and for all and then put it to bed because people will not stop bothering me. The Oasis details about their North American tour.
Why?
Well, because remember we were saying maybe it's a Budweiser stage thing. Are they a big enough band? Do people actually like? I like Oasis too. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan. But
guess they're saying they're huge.
They're huge. Yeah, they're playing massive stadiums. They're playing Rogers Stadium, which I guess they're building up in. Where is that? Up in North York, I think, or Downsview Park? Yeah.
You just take Dougie Ford's new tunnel up to Downsview, and you come out, and there's the stage.
There's a new stadium, but it's not even a real stadium, so I'm not buying it until I actually see it and they get there. But Soldier Field in Chicago, MetLife in New Jersey. All right, there you go. Okay, let's see if these guys actually get there, though.
I'm not a big Oasis fan, so I don't.
I
care
like
if
them.
They play
I think they're a really good band.
Yeah, but you're not going.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've got
Probably
something
not.
for you, Hayes, to weigh in on. I don't know if you saw somebody arrive at practice in a helicopter today.
No, I didn't see that.
Dude, you got Doogie, get the clip for this guy. We'll play it at the start of the hour. This guy just wheels in a chopper.
Is it Bill Foley?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's a different guy.
And a bigger, way bigger market. Way bigger market.
Yeah.
It's not a hockey guy then.
No,
never know.
Okay,
never know.
Need to
Okay.
Wait till 5 and we'll play it for you.
This is something else, man.
Well, I didn't see that.
Together.
Jerry Jones? Okay, Jerry Jones. He showed up in a helicopter, 2-2.
You gotta see this entrance, man. This guy.
This is why Bill Belichick will never go there. That helicopter, I haven't even seen it. Bill Belichick's like, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not having the owner and the fake GM show up in a helicopter when we're 2-2. Get serious, man.
I'm telling you just got to weigh in on this. This is something else.
All right, we'll come back and play it. And Chris Pronger coming up as well. Again, the Leafs, I think they're still up in Muskoka.
Yeah.
And back in action tomorrow. They got a game on Thursday and a game on Saturday. Then it's go time on Wednesday. This time next week is opening night. We're probably going to be doing props like we generally do.
Yeah.
Probably a little Jerry's. Maybe, Jerry, if you can find time for us next year or next week.
We're going to have the whole meal deal. We'll have
everything.
We might have a puzzle. We might have a puzzle.
We could have a puzzle. We haven't done that in a long time. We might have to put together the pieces of a puzzle.
You know what? We got to find. We're going to have all the mainstream ones. We need maybe 1, 2, 3. Each one of us has one outlier prop that we're going to, like something crazy.
I like that idea. Something outside,
outlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're going to need some internal solutions and some internal progress.
Yes,
I think we want to hammer that as well on what the Leafs can expect this upcoming season.
Why don't we do that sometime today if we get 15 minutes? The Leafs' internal solution that could lead to internal progress.
Okay. We'll give you an answer on that. We will have that later this afternoon. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.